Hello and welcome. My name is Marty Sexton, Senior Solutions Product Marketing Manager here at Polycom. We'd like to welcome you to Creating the Ultimate Content Sharing Experience. Our special guest today is Mr. Jim Lundy, Founder and Lead Analyst at Aragon Research. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping rules. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand along with the PDF of the slides in a follow-up email. The slides are also available for download within the green resource list widget, along with supporting materials that are related to today's topic. To suit your personal viewing experience, during the webcast, feel free to maximize or resize the slide window to your desired performance. At the conclusion of the webinar, we would very much appreciate your feedback in completing a short survey that is made available in the web console. Speaking today, I have the pleasure of introducing Jim Lundy. In our session, Jim will cover what are the trends in meeting spaces and conference rooms, what is the content sharing and why is it important to your business, who are the providers of content sharing solutions, and what should you consider when creating the ultimate content sharing experience. Marty will complete the session by introducing Polycom Pano and doing a demonstration of the product, our latest content solution sharing technology. Over to you, Jim.
Marty, great to be here. Thank you for the great introduction. We're really looking forward to having a great conversation today, talking about creating the great ultimate meeting experience. And again, my name is Jim Lundy. I'm the founder, CEO, and lead analyst here at Aragon. We really think that one of the things that's happening in the enterprise is there's a big shift going on to what we call visual collaboration. If I didn't show any slides, what I'd probably say is the future of work is about being interactive, about being visual. And today we're going to talk about some of the ways you can actually make that happen because there's a lot of things happening in the workplace. And one of those things that's happening is explosion of content, and people want better ways to share content. It's a subtle thing, but when you can share content more interactively and at higher fidelity, there's better comprehension that goes on between those knowledge workers or customers or whomever. And so, that subtle change in quality and being able to see high resolution content is kind of a big deal. And that's what we're going to really talk about today. Marty already kind of talked about some of the things going on relative to the agenda, so I'm not going to cover that, but we're going to hit all things you mentioned, including starting out with some of the trends. One of the things I just want to touch on as far as the major trends, cloud computing is really driving a lot of things. One of the things it's driving is that people need to collaborate more inside and outside of the enterprise. And, one of the things that's driving that is the need to share all this rich content that's happening, including video content and text content. We talk about things like knowledge automation and interactive presentations. I'll touch on that a little later. But the other thing is being able to do it on almost any form factor and any device, and being able to do it with an appealing interface. Another thing we're not going to spend as much time on today, but the rise of big data and more predictive applications where software can start to recognize maybe the presentation that you need to share in the meeting that's on your calendar. So a lot of things going on there. Still pretty early days. But the reality is we think computers and humans are going to work closer together than they ever have. And one of the ways that they're going to do that is through better content experiences. So that's really what we're going to dive into. Another trend is, again, video is really transforming the customer experience. And we think, as we'll talk about in just a little bit, it's not just about seeing the person, but seeing what it is they're talking about. And again, in some cases, while the video experience has gone higher end, upmarket, sometimes the content sharing experience isn't really what everybody wants it to be. because until now we really haven't had this thing that we're referring to as enterprise class content sharing. And again, that's one of the things Marty's going to be unveiling to you today is their new product offering they call Pano. But again, there's a lot of use cases for interacting with people using video, like we're doing on this webinar. I mean, you're seeing me talking, I'm interacting with you. There's higher probability that what I'm talking about you're going to pay a little bit more attention to if I'm delivering and enunciating and talking well, and sometimes accentuating what I'm doing. But it's also about the content you're seeing on screen, which is, again, part of that whole thing of being able to share information in a better way that is more interesting because I can see it better and I can understand it better. What about the changing work areas? There's actually a lot that's quietly and subtly going on in the office workplace. And again, whether you have a home workplace, whether you have a shared office space where, a co-working space where there's other companies, one of the things when you really need to have a meeting is you got to have a place to have that meeting, and then you got to have a way to share it. If you actually go back not that long ago, some of us may have been in the workplace a little bit longer. Remember the days, I don't know if you remember them, Marty, but the days of the overhead transparency machine where you had charts that you put on a transparency machine and they were projected onto the screen. At about the same time, the rise of these analog whiteboards, which are still very, very popular, but shifting over to more of a being able to do that digitally. And then we're at really where we are now at the end of the what we call the projector era, where you had an overhead projector, or it was on a table, and you were plugging that in with a cable, and you're projecting your computer image onto some sort of wall or sliding display. And as you know, at conferences, that's still the number way that's doing it because a lot of hotels and conference spaces don't have the big digital displays. But the great news for offices is you can now, in 2017, get a really high resolution display, for some cases, a couple $100s. So that's the thing that's happening is when I got a high-res display, whether it's 1080p or higher, as I'll talk about in just a second, a lot of things happen. The question is, why is this happening? And there's a couple reasons why. Talk about this idea of video and display proliferation. We started out, and I worked at different companies. The idea of big conference spaces with, big projection areas, whether they were projected with a projector or in cases in monitors, prices have started to come down. And what's also started to happen is there's more devices. So if I'm out in the field, I might have my tablet or my phone, and that's a display device that I want to be able to see content on. But if I'm in an office, I want to see it. Monitors have come down, but there's more devices. There's more things that people want to be able to collaborate on and with. And again, even in the last 10 years, because we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of some of these mobile devices like the iPhone, there's just more displays out there, and they're higher resolution than they've ever been, and they cost less than they ever have. But the challenge is, how do I leverage that in the office? And again, if I just build this slide out, one of the things that's also happening, there's more content. There's more content that needs to be shared. And what's happening in the enterprise is a lot of the stuff that's happening on social networks, on YouTube. I want to be able to share that. YouTube being used for corporate portals. People like Polycom having enterprise class solutions for that. But the expectation, since I can see high-res stuff at home, is I want to see high-res, content, images, etc. at the office. And so the question is the old way of projecting information and sharing it in the office acceptable? And what people are saying is, no, it's not. There's got to be a better way. And part of the reason that that's happening, as I go to the next slide, is what we call the rise of lifelike both video and content sharing, where we're starting to enter the era today. If you're looking to buy, a monitor for your conference room, should you buy a 1080p monitor or should you buy a 4K monitor that might even have touch enabled? Again, Marty's going to talk about how they're going to enable that. But, we have in our office a 4-year-old 1080p display. We're thinking about buying a better display because, you know what? It doesn't cost that much, and I can share that content at a higher res capability. All this is kind of coming together at the time when we're also talking about the rise of what we call digital work hubs. And again, video and content at the center. Most times, people at work are talking about a particular piece of content that has to do with a work project they have going on, and they need to share that. And today, our estimate is that a majority of conference rooms don't have digital displays, they don't have video, but that is going to change, and I'll give you a projection on that in just a couple of minutes. So one of the things we're here to talk about, and I've got an arrow here on this next slide, is what we're calling about is the rise of, basically enterprise class content sharing solutions. And I'm going to touch more on that, but this is our technology arc for collaboration and communications that identifies on the emerging area and adoption and mature arcs, all these different technologies that are involved with, collaboration and communications. The entry for enterprise content sharing is brand new for 2017. And the reason is category really didn't exist until that, because all the solutions that have been out there to date have been really things that were designed more for home use that were adapted for corporate use. So this is a new thing. I mean, again, obviously, as video conferencing and the rise of intelligent video rooms, something that Polycom also does. Video conferencing is not new, but intelligent platforms are. But again, this new area where we're basically talking about getting rid of analog projectors and going with digital content sharing solution that will work almost on any device is the new big deal. So, really content sharing is about what we referred to at the beginning of this webinar, visual collaboration. And again, when you can see something in high quality, you can interact with it. You can generally project that on different types of devices. One of the really huge things, as somebody that runs a company myself, is the fact that in many cases you can do it with no wiring. So today, when I go into most offices, when I want to share something, they hand me a cable and I plug in, because they don't have what we're talking about is this enterprise class content sharing capability. And then, the last thing is, generally you're going to have probably a higher resolution is going to be a big deal. So what's our projection? Our projection is that by year-end 2020, 70% of projector systems are going to be replaced with these new enterprise content sharing devices. And again, I don't want to steal Marty's thunder, but he's going to be unveiling that. There's a lot of different things that are going on out there with that. And if we just talk about it, it did kind of start a few years ago where Apple kind of stumbled on this. They launched a device called Apple TV that was really for watching movies at home. But then they discovered this way that you could connect Apple devices to the screen and project your screen onto the display. As well for Windows-based devices. But a lot of times those devices for the office didn't work that well because not all the devices were supported. So that's really where, we talk about, the rise of these enterprise class content sharing devices. Not all of them are, but again, as we look at that, Polycom is going to be, talking about their new entry, but again, that will go up against, some of the consumer-centric stuff, some of the more complicated ones that have lots of hardware. But again, this is kind of a relatively new area because a lot of people just don't know that there's a better way to do it, that all devices can connect and share content and do it, as easy as, the Google or Apple type devices. So that's really the big news, is you can get rid of cables, you can get rid of the old projectors, and you can do it in a better, more seamless way. Now, again, that doesn't mean that you're not going to also need to look at, your web and video conferencing ways to do that. So in the early days of sharing content, people said, let's do a web meeting. They'd share their screen, and so all the people on the web meeting would do that. But guess what? Most of the times in an office, you're not in a web meeting, or you're not in a video conference. You're just having a meeting. And so that's one of the things that it scratches that itch of, I want to have higher resolution content. I've got great resolution on my device, but it's not great in the old way that we're doing our rooms. So when you actually start looking at real estate, moving into offices, what size display are you going to put in those? And again, it's a multi-purpose sort of display. I may use it for whiteboarding. I may use it for content sharing. I may connect in through my web or video conferencing offerings that in many cases you may have multiple of those. So again, that's when we talk about the providers, web and video conferencing is more mature. And if I just talk about enterprise content sharing, that's a new market. And again, that's the big news that we're talking about today, because really a lot of times people don't talk about that because there hasn't been really an enterprise story until now. So if we talk about preparing for this, one of the things we've got, there's two pieces of data in this slide talking about preparing for the next wave of digital content. There's, digitizing your conference rooms to prepare for web and high resolution content sharing. There's that. And again, we're saying that by 2022, up to 65% of conference and huddle spaces are going to be, quote, digital, whether they're video enabled or content sharing enabled. And there's also the rise of content growth. A lot of it is for product rollouts and training. We're saying about $600 billion being spent by the end of 2018 on digital content. So when you got all that content and you're going to spend all that time and money creating it, you want to be able to share it in a high resolution way. And so that's why we're kind of saying that these new devices are going to catch a lot of the projector companies off guard, because this is really the new way forward. It's kind of a sleeper that you don't expect, but it's real and it's happening, and it's happening. We think it's going to happen a lot faster than people realize, because these devices are compact, they're fast, and it kind of makes the conference room experience or the huddle room experience more fun, because wow, look how great those slides look. And again, I think that's one of the things. Again, not to steal Marty's thunder, when he talks about that, it's a big deal. So why do people need what we call a digital content strategy? We think they need that because, everything is going from analog to digital. And if you've got great digital content, but you're showing it in an old analog way, low resolution, not really very good, not very appealing, and people start to wonder, like, hey, what's wrong with this provider? They don't even have a great way to share content. So replacing those old projection systems is really step one. Getting the digital displays, the high resolution 4K touch displays. Again, is 1080p fine for some rooms? Yeah, but you'd be surprised how much better content looks when you see it in a higher resolution. And, start to look at the impact. Do people that visit your offices, do they give you a higher net promoter score? Because they go, wow, that's stunning. I mean, by the way, when you see some of that stuff in high resolution, it is stunning. And so this is kind of like what I would call kind of a no-brainer for the digital workplace. But it's a step that you can't miss. So the summary is, we're saying the visual collaboration era is here. We think the demand for digital content is unstoppable, and that, enterprises can't really wait. Like I said, this is kind of a no-brainer, but it's a step you can't miss. So develop a plan to digitize your offices and your conference and office spaces. And again, don't wait till next year. Start doing it now, because the cost equation is really pretty reasonable. So again, full steam ahead on digital, and I'm going to turn over to Marty now to talk more about the Polycom Pano.
Well, thank you, Jim. We certainly enjoyed hearing your view of the industry and value your expertise in this area to help our customers be more successful in their use of content, whether they're in transition or have already moved. So what I'd like to do now is spend a few moments of your time introducing a new product, a new entry into this exciting content sharing category from Polycom. It's called Polycom Pano. I'd like to do that through AirPlay on this case, and I'd like to put a few slides up for us. Right. On June 6th of this year, we were very pleased to announce and ship Polycom Pano, simply the easiest way for people to share content in a work environment. And we were equally excited to showcase it at InfoComm last week. Polycom Pano is the easiest way to connect from your personal devices. As you heard Jim say, the proliferation of devices in the room and the ubiquity of protocols to allow people to wirelessly share will propel people from projected systems into wireless content sharing with basically any type of glass in the room. By adopting AirPlay and Miracast, we believe that we have a baseline for a very high level of connectivity. And additionally, we've also included connectivity for legacy systems. So we understand that most customers are in a transition mode from perhaps legacy projection or non-touch environments into a touch environment. And by offering this wireless connectivity across the board, we think will make our customers very successful. After you've had the ability to connect really easily, the next thing you want to do is share multiple streams of content. Our customers and customers I'm sure that Jim has talked to are looking to move beyond a single stream of content, a pass the cable mentality, and to view multiple streams of content that would allow them to really quickly share and compare their work. And as I think Jim would agree with, we want to enable those customers that are transitioning in their display technologies. That comes from projectors to non-touch, and even in the near future for future touch. As we see touch interfaces and touch displays drop in price, we're seeing a lot of interest in moving to that environment. But today, obviously, they have investments that they want to leverage for display technologies. The other piece to this is that they want to extend, our customers need to extend the collaborative experience beyond just in the room. And by offering a tight integration with video codecs from Polycom, that experience becomes very simple and easy because of the knowledge of what's in the room. So along the lines of the Internet of Things. So having knowledge of what's in the room and what is compatible. The group series integration allows the content streams to happen automatically. And as a value add to our customers, we fully interoperate with competitive video conferencing systems as a simple content source. So it's a really great value for your existing display technologies, video conferencing, and even competitive video conferencing. Now what I'd like to do is switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to come up to the monitor and interact and show you 4 basic deployment scenarios. Today I am enabled with a touch monitor, and I have 4 streams of content up here that illustrate 4 different scenarios. We're going to start with the basic scenario, which is number 1 right here. We'll go to number 2, which goes to adding legacy software users. Then we'll transition over to our integration with the group series codec. And then finally, we'll finish up with the ultimate experience going into a touch-enabled environment. So let's first start. Let's order these in importance here. And we'll look at number 1. Now, in this scenario, we are looking at in-room collaboration as a standalone solution. This allows people from various devices, Windows and Mac, to AirPlay and Miracast by simply walking in, connecting, and sharing. In this environment, we're also leveraging a non-touch display. A touch display could be added, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but it's primarily geared towards really quick and really easy connections. Sharing multiple streams of content from any of our devices. Now, let's look at number 2. In this case, what we've done is it's the same basic scenario as in-room. It has non-touch, Microsoft and Apple, but this customer has deployed a Pano app to satisfy the needs of legacy operating systems that don't natively have Miracast included, and that is the Pano app. An additional benefactor of the Pano app is that you can save all of the annotations and content that's being shared in a JPEG format on your local drive or in the cloud. Now let's go even further. Let's extend this conversation to remote participants. Here we have the same in-room collaboration. We have a non-touch display, Microsoft and Apple devices, and we're extending that experience beyond the room to our local participants via a video connection. So a simple HDMI connection from the device into the group series will take a dual stream of content and video and put it over to the other side, displaying everything shown here on a remote participant window. That includes a single stream or multiple streams of content with the active annotations. As we look into the future, many organizations are wanting to experience and leverage the multi-touch capabilities. Now here we have a 4K multi-touch monitor, and we do support up to 4K on Pano, but it is not a requirement. You could easily do this with a 1080p. We have the same in-room experience with our remote participants, but what we've done is we've leveraged our touch interface. Now this touch interface doesn't need to be an 85 or 85 inch or even a 55 inch monitor. It could be much smaller based on your ability to install and your price sensitivity. So what this does is it allows our users to have multi-touch capability as well as annotation that I've been demonstrating throughout this particular call. You still get the same abilities to share multiple streams of content, up to 4 on screen at one time, annotate, highlight, and save those images for later use. Now what I'd like to do is transition to some use case examples. I have 2 cases here. One is an example of a product development house. The stakeholders are an industrial designer, a web developer, sales manager, and a graphics designer. These 4 participants are much more productive by understanding the holistic approach to their work product. In this use case, they need extremely easy setup and maintenance. Polycom Pano is connected with a simple HDMI cable and a LAN cable. So it's very easy to set up and maintain. They also need full frame rate video because they are reviewing advertisements and live 3D animations. They want to use multi-touch to reorganize and annotate their content. Our next example is a higher education. The users in this case are primarily professors. They have a student need, and occasionally they'll need a guest speaker. What they need to do is have an extensive capability to share from any device. Oftentimes, students, especially coming into the environment, you cannot predict what device or what software they're running, so it has to be ubiquitous in its connectivity. This environment is also very cost sensitive. They also need a flexible environment that for deployment within the room and redeployment within the room or other rooms, as well as a very highly secure solution. They, as to Jim's point, are likely to have projection systems and would be moving away from those in the future, but today they need to satisfy that need. and they certainly would be interested in the ability to annotate their sessions, whether that's the professor or the students, and then use that for later consumption. With that, I'm really proud to announce that Polycom Pano has hit the market. It is shipping today, available now, and quite simply, it's the easiest way to share content at work. It allows you to quickly and easily connect, quickly and easily share multiple streams of content in a work environment. I'd like to thank you for your time, and if we have a few moments for questions, Jim, how do you see Pano fitting within the trends that you've so clearly outlined in the first part of this session?
So, yeah, we kind of, here's what our take is. We kind of view Pano as really one of the first enterprise class content sharing devices that's on the market. So,
yes.
That's what I was kind of getting at earlier. There hasn't really been, this platform that can deal with the different protocols like AirPlay or Miracast and seamlessly connect all these different types of devices. So the user just doesn't care, because as we know, it really isn't about the operating system anymore. That's basically become commodity. It's really about the experience. And so enterprise class content sharing devices like Pano are going to really basically make that work experience even better and more fun. And again, there's going to be better retention. When you see higher quality content on a screen, you're going to remember it because it kind of imprints that in your mind.
I would wholeheartedly agree. I think a lot of the customers that we spoke to last week at Infocom would agree that they are in a transition mode. They are looking for ways to become more interactive with the content. Your point about the convergence of displays and the number of pieces of glass or devices in our world today is basically tripled, right? We've gone from a desktop unit to laptops to smartphones. We have pretty much all those in our bag at any one time. And the convergence of that, along with the availability of content in all forms, whether it be still images that we're showing here today or video, is really driving the need for seeing a many aspects of a work product, for instance.
That's right. Yeah, and again, the big thing is that people recognizing that the possibilities, because I think that's one of the things is a lot of them just didn't know that you could do this with no wires.
I agree. I think at its baseline, our customers are asking, can you just make it easier for me to get this device placed up there so we can share? That's
right. Exactly right.
Well, that concludes our presentation and demonstration of Polycom Pano. I certainly am very thankful for each of you to attend for us today. As I noted at the top of the call, if you would be so kind as to complete the survey, we will like to take that and make our sessions even better. So with that, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank our speaker, Jim Lundy from Aragon Research. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic rest of the day.
When you finally have all the right people together.
So, Jen, can you share with us your financial forecast?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Tom, while I mess with this, can you show the Q1 marketing strategy, please?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to show you that much. Jen!
All right, here are the numbers.
So, how do these align with actual bookings? Can we see them side by side?
Unfortunately, we can't.
What is this?
Sorry, that must be coming from someone in another room.
You can't afford to fumble with pucks, apps, or failure. Introducing Polycom Pano, the easiest way to share content at work. Learn more at polycom.com/Pano.